Welcome to Singtel Wall Conference. Please enter your PIN code followed by the hash key. Thank you. After the tone, state your name, followed by the pound or hash sign.
Mariam.
Thank you. You will now be placed into conference.
Hello? Mariam?
Hello?
Hi.
Hi, Alina. Right.
Hey, Mariam. I've got Dom on the line.
Okay.
Hi, Mariam. How are you?
Hi, Dominic. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
How is India? Hot?
It's good. It's actually it's my first trip and I'm loving it.
Oh, perfect. Okay. So Alina did share certain numbers and which were very interesting considering that Indians are everywhere. So I have a couple of questions regarding that.
Yes.
Right. So first what I wanted to understand is what are the factors that are driving Indians abroad and what influences them to choose a particular country they want to reside in?
Yes, I think on the sectors side, a lot of it is opportunities, of course, abroad. Having spent the last few days in India itself is, of course, residential within India. But a lot of the time when people are actually physically looking to relocate, it's got a lot to do with education. It's clearly a big driver here. And that's why destinations like the US and UK and Australia are typically very popular. So looking at some of the numbers, almost 4.5 million Indians are in the US, 3 million are in the UAE, almost 2 million in the UK. So education is always a big factor in the ability to educate children outside of India itself. Quality of life, general quality of life, obviously there are things like the US and Canada and Australia, which are always at the top of the list in terms of prime destinations, whether it's the quality of the air, the transport system, the healthcare, that's always a big thing as well. And then again, tax obviously also comes into it. A lot of the time, in order to become more tax efficient, you have to physically relocate to a destination where the taxes may be more friendly on that individual's income. So those are primarily the reasons we see. And as I mentioned, the main destinations I think everyone's very familiar with from our industry perspective, investment migration. Historically, again, the US, Canada, and Australia, everyone knows those options. So the EB5 visa, which allows you to get a green card in the US, is becoming increasingly popular here in India. And a lot of the conversations we had this week, the idea of us coming here is really to meet with all the private banks and wealth managers. And EB5 is the one that generally everyone knows about. But in the broader investment migration industry, there's a lot of other really interesting options in Cyprus and Malta. Again, Alina and I were looking at some of the numbers. There's 12,500 Indians living in Greece, as an example. It's got a really interesting residence by investment program. You need to invest just 250,000 euros into real estate, into the permanent residence in Greece. And that's quite interesting here because, with an Indian passport, you only have visa-free access to 61 countries around the world. And if you have residence in one of these European countries, then you have the residence card in Greece or Portugal gives you visa-free access to the whole of the Schengen area. So from a business and leisure perspective, that's quite interesting. And looking now that I've been, spending some time I was in Chennai earlier this week and now in Bombay. 250,000 euros, you're not going to be able to buy anything, any real estate in this place. So having that discussion where, wealthy or high net worth individuals can invest, 250 to 500,000 euros, get some exposure to the European real estate market and with the value added benefit of a permanent residence, which gives them visa-free access to the Schengen. It's quite an interesting proposition for a lot of them.
Right. So if you have to list top 5 countries that Indians prefer the most, which would they be?
The top 5 countries where they're physically moving.
Right.
Is that the question? I mean, definitely the US. So the US is still by far the most popular.
Mm-hmm.
The UAE
Okay.
is still very much in second place.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of non-resident Indians based in the Middle East.
Mm-hmm.
The UK number 3. Malaysia is also a very popular destination. So Malaysia has the My Second Home program with very low threshold requirements. So if you are below the age of 50, you effectively only have to put the equivalent of an $80,000 deposit on a bank account, and you can get a 10-year residence permit for Malaysia. So Malaysia is very popular. And then in fifth place would be Canada. So there's over 1 million Indians living in Canada, based on the last sort of figures that we've seen. Canada had a very successful, probably the original really highly popular investment migration program, where you could do a $800,000 non-interest bearing loan to the government in Canada and get permanent residence.
Right.
That's changed somewhat. That original program closed, but now you do still have an option in Quebec. So in Quebec, you give a similar, it's a 1.2 million Canadian dollar zero interest loan to the government for 5 years, and you can get permanent residence in Canada.
Right.
And a lot of Canada's a very popular sort of target country, particularly when you look at the elements in terms of quality of life and education. So those would be the top 5 destinations. That's then followed by places like Singapore and Australia and New Zealand. Again, all 3 have investment migration programs. So if you're a high net worth or ultra high net worth individual, and of course you can pass the necessary due diligence checks that come with these programs, you can obtain permanent residence by just investing into these countries and creating economic benefits within them. Those countries then welcome these wealthy individuals. Of course, they want their investment, but they also want them to come and live there and bring their skills and talent to the local workforce.
So if you talk about alternative citizenship, so what is the increasing trend behind this? Like, why wealthy Indians want to have that option of another citizenship? What are the factors behind that?
Yeah, so look, I mean, obviously India itself doesn't allow dual citizenship. So typically, it's for those clients that would ultimately look to renounce their Indian, that they would get an alternative citizenship, but then ultimately look to renounce their Indian, which is enabled in some aspect now where you can just get a person of Indian origin card. So you still have all, you can still run your business and you can still come and live in India, but with an alternative citizenship. There's 2 major factors for our Indian clients looking at an alternative citizenship. One of them is pure travel freedom. So if you look at the Henley Passports Index, that ranks all of our passports according to the number of countries that you have visa-free or visa on arrival access to. So with an Indian passport, that number is only 61 countries. So as you would know, whenever you're traveling, the first thing you always have to think about is, do I need a visa and what's the whole process to get that visa? So one aspect of the demand for what we call citizenship by investment, and just to summarize, citizenship by investment, there's a handful of countries that have a pure citizenship by investment program. So these are government policies and regulations that are in place where a high net worth individual can invest into a country and become a citizen without having to physically go and live there. So this is really, we classify our clients as sort of cash rich but time poor. So they have the financial ability and liquidity to partake in the program, but they don't have the time to go and move to the US and live there and wait for 5 years to eventually be eligible to apply for citizenship. They want the citizenship now. So one element is travel freedom. How do I partake in a citizenship by investment program and move up the index, get a passport with greater mobility? And there you've got countries in the Caribbean that are very popular. Grenada is one particular country which you can, for a family of 4 as an example, they can either donate $200,000 to the Grenada government, or they can invest $350,000 into real estate. And if they do that, then they can pass the due diligence checks. They can become a citizen of Grenada and get a passport that then, with an Indian passport, they've got 61 countries, and with a Grenada passport, they've got visa-free access to almost 150 countries. And that includes the whole of the European Schengen area, the UK. Grenada is quite unique because it even has visa-free access to China, which a lot of countries, which a lot of passports don't. And for entrepreneurs and businessmen that are doing a lot of business, China, that's also quite useful. So the visa-free access ability of being able to acquire a stronger passport from a travel perspective is one factor that's driving the industry. And the other one is when you look at the European Union. So within the European Union, there's 28 member states, and two of them, Malta and Cyprus, they're full members of the European Union. They have a citizenship by investment program. The passports themselves, again, very good from a travel perspective, but the real attraction of those is that they are EU members. And if you're a citizen of one of the EU members, you have the right to settle. So you have settlement freedom in all 28 countries of the European Union. So as a wealthy Indian national, you can, as an example, in Cyprus, you can invest 2 million euros, so a higher investment threshold, 2 million euros into real estate, submit the application for citizenship, and after 6 months, they will be approved. So they don't have to live in Cyprus. As long as they've got the ability to invest the 2 million euros, which again is probably not really buying you that much in cities like Bombay and Sydney. But if you're doing it in Cyprus, you're getting the real estate offshore exposure, and you're getting a passport. And with that passport, that individual and their family can now live, they can work, they can study, be educated, or spend as much time as they want in all 28 countries.
Right.
So I had an Indian family that was based in Singapore, as an example. They did Malta. So in Malta, for the family of four, it's 1.2 million euros. And with that Malta passport, they've now all relocated to the UK, and they're now based in the UK. So those are the two big factors. It's travel freedom. The Caribbean is more the focus. But certainly what we see with our clients in India is because they would renounce their citizenship, they're looking for a citizenship in Europe because it gives them that access to 28 countries that they can then go and move to and access all the opportunities in those countries.
Right. So it's great, like two benefits at one time. You can not only invest, but you can also stay there.
Correct, exactly.
Right.
So in the Caribbean, none of our clients go and live in the Caribbean. With a Caribbean passport, they can travel to the UK and Europe for sort of short-term business and for leisure. But they can't go and you can't get a Grenada passport and go and live in the UK or go and live in France, as an example. But with a Cyprus or a Malta, you're a European citizen, not just a citizen of that single country.
Right. So recently I just read that even Thailand has started this e-visa on arrival for Indians. So I know one thing for sure, that it will boost tourism in Thailand. But how will it help India? As in what way is it beneficial for India? And also, if you could just throw some light on Asia Pacific mobility and migration trends.
Yeah. So in Thailand, again, it is a relatively significant population of Indians. I think just under 200,000 Indians are living in Thailand. Thailand, of course, as you mentioned, from a tourism perspective, is huge. I think something like almost 35 million tourists a year. Thailand has quite an interesting program there called Thailand Elite, the Thailand Elite Residence Program. And again, with very low thresholds. So if you look in the Southeast Asia region, the most popular destinations being, Thailand, Malaysia, and Singapore. Right. Malaysia has, as I mentioned earlier, the most elite. And Thailand Elite is quite a flexible program in that you can get a 5, 10, or 20-year residence visa to go and live in Thailand, and that ranges from $15,000 to $60,000. So it's obviously priced in Thai baht. But it's quite an interesting proposition. Singapore, of course, is not as easy. Singapore is not a country that particularly needs foreign direct investment. A lot of these countries have these programs because they're looking for FDI to come in. In Singapore, the focus is very much on entrepreneurs, They have what's called the Global Investor Program, which an applicant would need to invest 2.5 million Singapore dollars, come to Singapore, start a business, employ locals. Singapore is looking for a much more continued economic benefit from an investment migrant that can do that and then get permanent residence in Singapore. Australia and New Zealand have quite well-known investor visa programs ranging from $1.5 million to $5 million investment requirements. That they typically do, typically the applicants would actually physically move to Australia and New Zealand in order to enjoy the benefits that those countries provide.
So that many Indians are going abroad. I mean, the wealthy Indians are going abroad, investing there. But what does it mean for India? How does it does it help Indian economy in any way? I'm just trying to understand that.
Yeah, I believe it does. And a lot of these countries that don't allow dual citizenship, I mean, in a way that can be relatively restrictive. The great thing about, because if you look at most of the Western world, they allow dual citizenship. Most of Europe and the UK and the US and Canada and Australia, you're allowed to have more than one citizenship. And that, of course, enables people to go abroad. If they're studying in Canada and they're spending enough time there, they can become a Canadian citizen. The great thing about India is that, this person of Indian origin, or what is the OCI card, gives the ability that if they had to renounce citizenship, it's not like they can't return. So a lot of Indians, as I said, they go overseas for education and they get skills and work and experience. But of course, there's huge opportunities in India. So a lot of them then return and bring that with them. One of the interesting stats that I saw was, if you look at from a wealth perspective, the number of US dollar millionaires in India between 2000 and now, so over the last 20 years, has increased 9 times. So there's 39,000 US dollar millionaires in India in 2000, and now there's currently 343,000 US dollar millionaires. So the potential in India is huge. And despite this remarkable increase, India has 4 times the population of the US. The total wealth in India right now is comparable to the total wealth in the US 90 years ago. So there's just so much potential. So you have all these individuals that, our firm's slogan is all about being a global citizen. So the ability of someone to go overseas, get skills, get talent, get educated, and then bring that back to India where there's huge potential is really amazing. And you can see this in the whole of the Asian region. So India is one of the top 10 in terms of the growing number of high net worth individuals. But amongst that top 10 is places like Bangladesh, Vietnam, Philippines, where people are going overseas, getting educated, and then bringing that back and enjoying the benefits of all the potential that these countries have to offer.
Right. One last thing, Dominic. It's 2019, a new year. So how do you see visa freedom and travel access panning out in the world?
Sorry, can you repeat that? Sound broke up slightly.
Right. No. So one last thing about 2019. This particular year, how do you see visa freedom and travel access panning out in the world?
Look, you have certain countries like the US with, Trump the Trump administration, travel bans. You've got the UK with Brexit. So there is sort of in certain jurisdictions there's this isolationist sort of intention that's coming out. But generally, if we look at our Henley Passport Index, which we've been doing now over more than 10 years, the trend is that the global travel freedom is increasing year on year. So more countries are realizing the benefits of having visa waiver agreements with key destinations. If you look at places like the UAE and China, they are the 2 fastest rising countries on our passport index because they're realizing that the UAE not so long ago had a visa waiver agreement with China, and all of a sudden, with all that now that you have this huge population in China that likes to travel and spend money, the UAE is one of their top tourist destinations, and of course that brings significant benefits with it. So, a country like India is relatively restrictive in its own right in terms of visa-free access, And reciprocity is a big part of this. So the fact that India only has access to an Indian citizen only has visa-free access to 61 countries, it would have a lot to do with the fact that India is not giving reciprocal visa-free access to those other countries. So, we expect this to be very active. I think we saw last year a lot of visa waiver agreements being signed, certain countries having visa liberalization with the Schengen area. I saw a country like Brunei not so long ago when they signed their liberalization with the Schengen. Very sudden. Now you've got 26 key destinations in Europe which I can travel to visa-free. So the visa waiver space is a very active one, and in fact our passport index, we used to only release it once a year, but because it's got so active, we've actually now updating that on a quarterly basis. So we get this exclusive data from IATA, and that data we use as the base. And then we have a whole research team that every day is monitoring visa waiver agreements, MOUs getting signed between governments, and then we're now that's effectively a live document. So every quarter now we're releasing an updated Henley passport index because there's so much activity in the space.
Sure. Dominic, it was really nice talking to you. A lot of details, a lot of numbers. Thank you so much for giving this perspective.
No problem. If you need anything else, please let us know.
Sure. Thank you so much. Thanks, Alina.
Thanks, Dad.
Bye.
Thanks, Mariam.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Dom.